Oath or affirmation of a new senator. Item number 4, confirmation of minutes.
The Honorable Simon Steele.
Mr. President, I beg
Just
to move.
one second, Simon. Just let me pull up those documents. Get up here, where is it? Not actually seeing the minutes itself.
Yeah.
Not seeing the minute. There's another document, yeah?
Have him open both set of minutes for me. There's 2 minutes on this laptop and return it, please. Yeah, go.
One second, this thing has been loaded improperly.
Scroll down there in the bottom. I think you want to open up both minutes for you, so I can have it on here.
Why didn't he load it in chronological order? I mean, that's the logically how things should be. I'm not seeing this. Okay.
All right, that's it. One here, and then, yeah.
You're starting with the 9th of October, right? Sorry.
Okay.
No.
So this is the one that's open, the first one for Friday the 4th, 2020. With the first minutes for confirmation. Are you looking for the second?
Well, I don't know. The order I have it in here now that I've found something here is Friday the 9th of October. So let me see, the 4th of October minutes we have to find? Mr. Clerk, you got to help me here, you know.
It's on paper. Going to set up minutes on paper. I'm getting the print to set up minutes on paper. You have one here. And the second one was That's one. You said the second one was where?
Look, the only minutes I'm seeing on this computer before me here is the,
All right, that's it.
I have before me here the minutes of the 9th of October.
Right, there was one for the joint sitting, and there's one for September 4th, 2020. Now, the one for September 4th, 2020, that's the one with...
Well, let me have this computer then. Right.
So the two
I'm not finding this. Okay, let me use this one. Yeah. 1 second. Hold on a second. What's happening here now? Yes. Senator Steele.
Mr. President, I beg to move the minutes of the proceedings of the sitting of the Senate held at the Parliament Chamber, Mount Weldale, St. George's, on Wednesday, the 19th of August, 2020, be taken as read.
Honourable members, the question is that the said minutes be taken as read. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the minutes of the proceedings of a sitting of the Senate held at the Parliament Chamber, Mount Weldale, St. George's, on Wednesday, the 19th of August, 2020, be confirmed.
Honourable members, the question is that the minutes be confirmed. Those who have that opinion say aye. Senator Williams?
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. These minutes of the 19th of August were, the confirmation of those minutes were suspended in the sitting before last so that a query that I had raised could be rectified. Now, there wasn't an opportunity for a committee to meet to settle the amendment. However, I believe that this can be done now, and we can dispose of that matter. In order to aid that, the Clerk of Parliament provided to the members of the House an extract of the Hansard from that sitting, which would help the members to decide on the wording of the suggested amendment. And to make life easier for everyone, Mr. President, I have some wording.
I have a little difficulty in hearing you, Senator. I don't know if
Pardon, Mr.
I don't know if Central Control could adjust the volume a bit.
The mic. Mr. President, are you hearing me better now?
Not much better. This is not evidence that I'm the oldest person in the chamber.
Go ahead. Mr. President?
Yeah, much
Okay.
better. Yeah.
Yes, so as I was saying, the confirmation of the minutes of the 19th of August had been suspended so that a proposed amendment could be settled by a committee of members from the House. But since there was no opportunity for such a committee to meet, I proposed that the wording of the amendment be settled by the members this morning. To aid the members in making that decision, the Clerk of Parliament had provided an extract of the Hansard from that occasion. So the intention of my amendment was to properly couch what I had expressed on the day of that sitting.
Yes, I understand that, yes.
Yes. So, Mr. President, the suggested amendment to page 67 of those minutes are as follows. Please permit me to read. Senator Williams sought clarity on the procedure of debates in relation to questions and comments on ministerial statements. Senator Williams expressed that the practice of members giving opinions on matters and asking questions which do not seek to clarify any particular issue, not in the course of the presentation of the ministerial statements, deviated from what is prescribed in the standing orders. So that is my proposed amendment to the minutes. And I believe that more accurately expresses what my concern was, as reflected in the Hansard excerpt.
Honorable members, any comments, I take it that those amendments are acceptable to the House? Yes?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, no objection. So, Clerk, could you please note that the amendments as proposed by Senator Williams be accepted and it be reflected in the minutes? There's no need to solicit a vote on that. It's an amendment offered without objection in respect of the members' contribution to the debate. Thank you, honorable members. Yes? So the question is that the amendments, the minutes with the amendments as proposed and accepted be now confirmed. All those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary view, say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the minutes of the proceedings of the sitting of the Senate held at the Parliament Chamber, Mount Weldale, St. George's, on Friday, the 4th of September, 2020, be taken as read.
Honourable members, the question proposed is that the minutes of the proceedings of a sitting of the Senate held at the Parliament Chamber, Mount Weldon, on Friday, 4th September 2020, be taken as read. All those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the minutes of the proceedings of a sitting of the Senate held at the Parliament Chamber, Mount Weldale, St. George's, on Friday, the 4th of September, 2020, be confirmed.
Honourable members, the question is that the said minutes of Friday, 4th of September 2020 be confirmed. Those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the minutes of the proceedings of the ceremonial state opening of the 4th session of the 10th Parliament, held at the Parliament Chamber, Mount Weldale, St. George's, on Friday, the 9th of October 2020, be taken as read.
Honourable members, the question is that the minutes be taken as read. Those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Senator Steele.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the minutes of the proceedings of the ceremonial state opening of the 4th session of the 10th Parliament, held at the Parliament Chamber, Mount Weldale, St. George's, on Friday, the 9th of October 2020, be confirmed.
Honourable members, the question is that the said minutes be confirmed. Those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Clerk.
Item number 5, messages from the Governor General. Item number 6, announcements by Mr. President.
honorable members. Every 10th of November is recognized as World Science Day for Peace and Development, and highlights the significant role of science in society and the need to engage the wider public in debates on emerging scientific issues. It also underlines the importance and relevance of science in our daily lives. The peace component of this recognition is given man's understanding of matter and its complexities and the powers contained therein. The issue of world science in the context of peace is an existential consideration, in that the knowledge of the atomic and other powers of matter is such that civilization as we know it, if the peace component is not emphasized and does not win the day, can see an end to human civilization. By linking science more closely with society, World Science Day for Peace and Development aims to ensure that citizens are kept informed of developments in science. It also underscores the role scientists play in broadening our understanding of the remarkable, fragile planet we call home, and in making our societies more sustainable. Just in the last few weeks, in fact, the Americans announced today that they have tailored, after much effort, and coming after other scientists in places like the People's Republic of China, were able to analyze the genome of the COVID-19 and have identified and developed possible vaccines to deal with this pandemic. This reinforces the importance of scientific knowledge, especially biological scientific knowledge, in the times in which we live. So as we recognize this day, it is necessary to emphasize that strengthening public awareness of the role of science for peaceful and sustainable societies is important. Promote national and international solidarity for shared science between countries. In fact, the World Health Organization has put uppermost in the context of the scientific researches right now in the finding of a disease, that there's going to be a fair and equitable system of bringing the vaccines to humankind. And that's important because it underscores the recognition of life, the value of all life, and that life must not, or the security of life must not be dependent on the size of your monetary pocket. That's a fundamental principle. And therefore, as we salute this World Science Day for Peace, we have to bring to it also the principles of equity, fairness, so that all of human society can benefit. Today, honorable members, I ask you to reflect as we salute this day, World Day of Science for peace and development of human society. And I thank you. Honorable members, you would also have learned that Senator George tendered her resignation from the Senate. And it took effect before we had an opportunity to meet. So I want to use this occasion really to pay my own personal tributes to her for the brief period she spent in the Senate. I thought it was remarkable from the points of view of the value of her contribution. She had a discerning eye for the law. She was forthright in the collection of her thoughts. She was profound in the contributions that she made to this House. And I think all of us who would have benefited from her knowledge would recognize the loss by virtue of her absence from the Senate. She has done some wonderful work on a number of legal matters. She's been very active in the parliamentary subcommittee of women working on legislation to address sexual abuse and sexual offenses arising at the workplace. That work still continues. She's made certainly outstanding and very valuable contributions. Although we have not yet completed that work, she has given the assurance that she is prepared to continue to serve. And I wish to put into the record my profound thanks and gratitude to her. She's also given me the assurance that she will be following events in this chamber. She'll be following events nationally, and that from time to time, she can be called upon to use her expertise in any way that the nation feels that she can assist. So although she has exited the chamber in body, she has not exited the chamber in her commitment to see Grenada, our homeland, a better place. Honorable members, I'm certain that I express much of what you would feel, but it is only fair and fitting to give you the opportunity yourselves individually to read into the records your own acknowledgement of her contribution and to convey your own personal thanks to her. And at this point in time, I now invite members to do so, beginning first with the Leader of Government's Business. And I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I wish, on behalf of government's side, to add to the comments that, that you have just made. Senator George, during her time here in the Senate, demonstrated her significant capacity, professional capacity, and brought to the debates here in the House a level of balance, maturity, and thoroughness that was her hallmark, and she will certainly be missed, and her contribution, not just on government side, but to the richness of the general debate, will be sorely missed. Senator George, in preparing for Senate sessions, would often discuss matters with me as leader of government's business, want to get a deeper insight and ensure that the contribution that she made was as significant as possible, and also help provide me with counsel, with her legal understanding in terms of some of the contributions that I made. So the government side will miss her. I personally, as leader of government's business, will miss her support also. And what also struck me about Senator George, as well as all of those professional credits, is her passion for national development. Her contribution here was not about partisan politics, but a genuine desire to add her voice and her capacity to the national debate and propelling our national development agenda. And on behalf of the senators on this side, I wish her all of the best in her professional endeavors. And as you rightly said, Mr. President, she has expressed this to us, that her willingness to continue to serve in whatever capacity she is able to, she is willing to do so. So she's close by. So once again, we wish her all of the best and thank her for her valuable contribution to this House. I thank you, Mr. President.
Senator, the Honorable Christy Ali.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I too would like to join and associate myself with the comments made by the Leader of Government Business as relates to Senator George, who joined us some time ago. Mr. President, I too found her thoughts and her contributions of high quality, and I suppose as testimony to the individual and what she has done in her own professional life. So from where we sit in the private sector and the private sector rep, we want to wish Senator George, well, still have to get accustomed to not saying Senator George, but Attorney Kim George the best in her future endeavors, Mr. President, and of course, we wish her all the best as well.
Senator Lewis, Andre Lewis.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I too, on behalf of the labor movement, associate with the positive expressions in regards to former Senator Kim George. I found her to be very humble, which is extremely important and a good sign. Despite her progress in life, she has, certainly in my view and the other people's view who have been in contact with, have remained connected to the ordinary people. I wish her all the very best in her future endeavors, and from a personal point of view, I know that our contacts and engagement will continue because, for instance, as within TAU, I've had the pleasure in negotiating with her on the other side, representing an employer. And I must admit, I found her to be very understandable. As a matter of fact, I can recall her indicating that this engagement with TAU was very revealing because she had formed a view and impression over the years that all the unions were there to do was just to fight and make noise. Yes, but she found us to be extremely reasonable. And that would have also been under your leadership, Mr. President, the workplace that you represented. So from that time, we were able to develop that level of engagement to have a better appreciation of where the labor movement is coming from as we do our different deeds to try to advance the cause of the country. I want to end again by wishing her all the very best in our future endeavors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to do likewise on behalf of the opposition. We hear the senators on the opposition side. My encounter with her was very brief, and what I've seen of her has Senator Lewis has just expressed humbleness about her. I remember she congratulating us as we were installed as the new senators on the opposition side, and she wished us well. And she also seemed as though she had an appreciation for history, which she did mention. And that was very nice. When I gave my maiden speech, she did mention that in terms of the history and so on, and she liked the connection and all that. So I'd just like to say that I wish her well, and wish her well in all her endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Noel. Okay, Honor. I want to take the opportunity on my own behalf and yours to welcome our newest senator to the chamber, Senator the Honorable Roderick St. Clair. He was sworn in at the joint sitting of the Houses at the ceremonial opening of the parliamentary session, and we did not have the opportunity, Senator, to extend to you a fraternal welcome to the chamber. So we want to use the opportunity to do so now. At the rate we are going, Senator, it looks like this chamber will shortly be the local government of the parish of St. Andrew. And that's a good thing, because you have been famously known as the breadbasket of the state of Grenada. But I think you can make a claim to be the germinating station of senators, because St. Andrew is, well, I wouldn't like to use the word overrepresented, lest I may send a wrong message, but certainly it has a dominant presence. From the Labour leader to your goodly self, to the two opposition senators, St. Andrew is dominating this chamber. And it's taken over from Carriacou, okay? And it's a good thing. I know other parishes may be a little bit jealous, but all it means they have to work harder. I'm not necessarily recommending that we have proportional representation in the Senate and that it should be made up of persons, one from each parish. I mean, in the United States, the Senate is constituted that way. But it must be a moment of pride. Senator St. Clair, for you to be here. Pride not only for yourself and your family, your parents if they are still alive, and even if they're not, the fact that they gave birth to someone who can sit in the highest decision-making chamber in the land is really quite an astounding achievement for which everyone would be proud. But to also come from St. Andrew, the traditional breadbasket, speaks a lot. From the little knowledge I know of you, you and I had an engagement at my office after you received your instrument. I am convinced that the farming community will be well served. And if you don't execute that, I will be personally disappointed. So you have a challenge. There's no reason for me to believe that you won't rise to the challenge. The farmers have been the backbone of Grenadian civilization. In earlier periods, even from the time of our indigenous foreparents, up until just recently, tilling the soil, mastering the soil, harnessing its potential for food and sustenance, has built Grenadian civilization. Indeed, is the foundation upon which international capitalism grew its strength. From the naked exploitation of our foreparents, who struggled as unpaid, bonded labor without rights, equal to chattel. The records of capitalism and slavery and the works of Dr. Eric Williams and others is a testimony to the important transformative role that agriculture has played in the history of humankind and continues to play. Because no human civilization can exist without food. So you have an important mission. And I am certain, with the energies and foresight and enthusiasm of the Minister of Agriculture, if you all can find ways to collaborate and to engage in a constructive arrangement for the welfare of our farmers, who face a world in transition and change. The plantation economy of yesteryear, which made others rich, has found itself in a transitional form in the world today, where, while it is still fundamentally important, may not necessarily have the same kind of degree of economic force and power. It's the realities of the new world. But I'm certain that with your efforts, your acumen, your hard work, and most of all your commitment to the ordinary people who till the soil, who do a very important job, I am certain that if we build sustaining partnerships that focus on growth and development, and let us be clear, there are going to be differences. There are going to be hard times. There are going to be obstacles. The question has always been, how do we overcome them? And what do we do? And therein lies your challenge. So with these few words, Senator, I personally want to welcome you to the House. And I will allow the other members of the Senate in their own individual capacities, because I think that's only proper, for them also to record the gracious welcome to you and to make you feel at home. As I said to you before, my office is opened all the time. And your colleague, Senator Tessa Sincere, can attest to that. I have called her on the phone and WhatsApp her different days of the week. We have communicated on many matters related to Parliament. And the same goes to any senator. In fact, at 4:30 this morning, Senator Judd and I had an exchange. I sent him something around, I think it might have been 11:30. He responded around 4 this morning and asked if he could call me. But I saw the message when I got up to feed my dogs at 5:45. And when I tried to reach him, I didn't get him. So I'm saying this to say to you that feel free to call me at any time on any subject. And if I am able to assist you Rest assured that I would. Honorable members, therein lies my welcoming remarks to the Most Honorable Roderick St. Clair, representative, in the Senate of the farmers of the state of Grenada. Thank you. I noticed Senator Cox. Did I see Senator Cox's light? Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I too wish to take the opportunity to welcome our dear colleague Senator St. Clair to this honorable house, and also to extend an offer in terms of support specifically to agriculture, as that is one of my areas of competencies. I've worked in a different capacity serving farmers for more than a decade, so I truly do have an intimate knowledge and understanding of some of the challenges and some of the opportunities that there lies where agriculture is concerned, and is one of the areas that I do have a strong passion for. And so I am saying here in this honorable house, feel free to call on me in any capacity, personally or anyhow, for any support towards any initiatives towards the farmers and the development of agriculture going forward. Mr. President, I think there is a wonderful opportunity here within this honorable house. It is one of the best places to be, especially around this time of the year. We normally be the last to leave for the Christmas break, and so we have an opportunity to express that sentiment around that time. That is one of the beauties of this place, and it also lends itself, because of the diverse nature and competencies of the individuals here, for an exciting and, of course, enjoyable debate in this honorable place. So I think that you're going to enjoy it. I think that you may not want to leave when you start to enjoy our operations here in the Senate. So welcome and all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I want to join with the other members of this honorable house to welcome Senator St. Clair. Interestingly, he was actually my neighbor for a period of time. So not only is St. Andrews represented here well, I noticed you forgot to mention Senator Cadet, who is also from St. Andrews, but and Senator Gowie. But Senator St. Clair was actually my neighbor for a short while, and my brother had a small business that Senator St. Clair used to patronize. So I wish to take this opportunity from the opposition team to wish you well in your stint as a senator for agriculture, representing the agricultural sector. Like the other members, I would like to extend my best wishes, and if you do need any support, we are also here to support you. So all the best.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, like those who went before me, I want to join in welcoming Senator St. Clair in this honorable house. Mr. President, yes, as you rightly said, that St. Andrew is well represented here in this house. In fact, Senator Cox and I was trying to figure out Senator Diallo, whether or not he has St. Andrew's root. I won't be surprised if we have 100%, St. Andrew have 100% representation in some way or another. But I welcome you, and I, like the others as well, as it relates to youth in agriculture. It's an area I'm quite interested in. As you know, with so much things happening now, and agriculture being a main pillar in this economy, I think we can have a great discussion in terms of engaging more young people in the agriculture field. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I want to join my voice with the sentiments shared or expressed by my fellow colleagues before, and just want to say to my good brother, welcome. Mr. Sinclair and I have had several debates on several issues over the years, and I do believe the bond and relationship we would have developed, very mutual, very respectable, and so forth, will continue. As you embark on this journey, very important journey, and that is to represent a major sector within the country, and that is agriculture. And of course, as we know, agriculture is one of the pillars of our dear land. And coming from Birch Cove in St. Andrews in particular, where nutmeg would have been our hallmark, some cocoa, not a banana, but meaning nutmeg, we understand the value of agriculture to the rural communities. And you have been given the mandate to champion this going forward. You cannot do it in your own sphere, in your own zone. There must be teamwork. So there is a great need for collaboration and teamwork with the Minister of Agriculture. A man in similar nature to yourself, and I guess as much Monty will agree with me that he is outgoing like Roderick himself. And I think when you both put your heads together as it relates to serving the sector, I expect a lot to happen. And with your commitment, I do believe the agriculture sector is at a better place with you on board. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator Gawi. Senator Noel.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I too want to welcome Mr. Sinclair personally, because I know him very well. We often meet from time to time. And the fact is that we're from the same parish. And I know that he has a wealth of knowledge and experience in the field, and that he will serve the agriculture sector and community well. From my point of view, the fact that I'm very passionate about agriculture as well, I'm looking to work along with him as well and render support where it's necessary, because I believe that, especially at this time with unprecedented pandemic at hand, agriculture should be one of the main pillars, I often said it, going forward in this country in terms of our development. So I want to take the time out again and welcome him personally, because I know him well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too want to add my words of welcome to Senator Sinclair. And we had experience when I was in the Ministry of Agriculture, you at the MNIB, and you've always come across as a straight talker, very knowledgeable, very passionate about the development of the agriculture and fisheries sectors. And I think what I've always found with you is your objectivity. You are a bridge builder, working at a grassroots level, but also with a very keen interest at the policy making level, and the need to build capacity, extra capacity within those sectors. And your appointment here to the Senate, I believe, is another positive step forward on the path, on the journey that you have taken. And I know I also want to recognize your predecessor, Senator Campbell, who also made a valuable contribution, and I know that you will in a very similar way, build on those who have gone before you. And just a closing note, I notice everybody is claiming to be from St. Andrews. There was a time where everybody wanted to be part of the Kakubawi clan, but now clearly it is St. Andrews. And I must admit, I cannot say I have roots there, but I know I'm in very, very good company. So once again, it's through you, Mr. President, welcome, and I look forward to working closely with you and the valuable contributions we know you're going to be making to this House. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And it is indeed a proud moment to welcome Senator Roderick. Guess you will permit me to say my good friend, my buddy, my comrade, Roderick. Not only is he from St. Andrew, but he's also from Ladig. And we both grew up together and engaged in many robust discussions, debates on the blocks. Yes, and so for myself and Roderick, it is very important, and understanding the important role that the farming community plays in our nation development. And not just understanding that role, but understanding and being knowledgeable of the fact that Roderick himself grew up in the lands and owes almost everything in terms of his foundation, as many of us, to the lands, the cocoa, the nutmeg, the banana, the spice, cutting the spice, the different things. So it is a very proud moment, and I'm absolutely confident that he will continue that rich legacy of representing the farming community, which by extension are workers, the parents of workers. And even if we inadvertently may have tried to shake off each other, but our path is just meant to be, because as the general manager of the GCNA, our union represents workers at the GCNA. So we have had that engagement. And it's a useful engagement, because what he is into the interests of the community as a whole. And my brother, my friend, it is a very proud moment to welcome you to the Senate, where we can give it our best shot in the interest of the country. Once again, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, would like to join in the chorus of welcome to Senator Sinclair. Well, I am not from St. Andrew, but I do have an uncle who lives there. I am from the other side of the island, the parish of St. John, and of course those parishes share similarities. But nonetheless, we are all brothers and sisters in here, and we all have the same goal, which is the development of our country. And of course, I don't have to tell you or impress on you the importance of your position as a representative of one of the pillars of our economy, agriculture. We are all aware that we have so much to do in that field, and I am confident that you will take on that mantle and perform your duty faithfully, thoroughly, and with the same level of impartiality and integrity as your predecessor. Now, this is a house of scrutiny, a house of review. It is far more exciting than that other place. So I'm sure you will enjoy the engagement here. I'm sure that we will have many interesting exchanges of an exciting nature. Senator Garraway will make sure of that. And I look forward to engaging with you in this House. So again, Senator, welcome.
Oh, so Senator Diali, yes.
Thank you, Mr. President, and Jakes, welcome. I can't add more to what I say. My interaction with you have been very businesslike, and just as Leader of Government Business said, he is a very forthright, very frank, you know where he stands with the individual. And I suspect and I know that you will represent your constituents well based on how you have articulated in the past. And just to let George know, I am from the other side. I am from the West. I have the privilege to be on the St. Andrews side yet. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Honorable members, I think at this time we would give Senator Sinclair the opportunity to respond to this whole litany of recognition. And the floor is now yours, so to do. I've given a commitment that we are going to put together a booklet, and it is fortuitous that we haven't done so as yet, because had we done so earlier, you would not have been in the booklet. But the idea is to put together all the maiden speeches, to record all those who served, because that is one of the defects and deficiencies, that you can't go into a single place in our archive and find senators who have served. You have to go through bits and things of documents. So we are now doing some documentation and so on, but it struck me as a very good project. So you can rest assured that your maiden contribution would grace the pages of the booklet that is going to come. Before this Parliament is dissolved, we'll be able to do that and to give each of you an opportunity as we have those speeches on record. So the big day and the big time is now. Over to you, dear Senator. You have the floor. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning to our colleague members of this chamber. As we said, this is my first time, and so I will try my best. I had to give my maiden speech, Mr. President, a topic, a title, so I can be guided for this presentation this morning. After much reflection, I realized that I need to refer to it as rebooting agriculture. The time is now. And rebooting, both from a technological standpoint, when it thinks about rebooting a computer, and also rebooting in terms of putting our boots on as a nation and engaging in agriculture. A lot was mentioned about St. Andrews, and my good friend, Mr. Luis, give a history of myself, I would say already. Yeah? I've done a lot as a little boy growing up in agriculture. As you say, the spices, fishing, hunting, getting up in the morning, going in the lands with my father, you know, eating the coconut bakes and all of those things. I think we all know that. Mudagawi on the other side member would have gone through all of those. But what we need to recognize for this whole agriculture sector is that I remember going to school, and on days you don't see some children to school. Why? Because they have to go in the lands. They have to go on Banana Day. And so I understand very much as an individual what this means for our country, and we all would have lived that same life. I would have, as I said this morning, my neighbor string, my member friend Khalid, is born in Grambas land, in Grambas. That's where my navel string is. That's where I born. I grew up in Ladig. And in all those cases, it's about farming and agriculture. So, fishing, as I mentioned, we go in Latuna and up in the Granite Tank and interface with the environment. All of that became part of upbringing. I went to the Mount St. Ovens Second Primary School. That school is no more. It's a sad moment. I then went on to the St. Andrews Anglican Secondary School, SAS, as we know it, sports school. I couldn't win a race, but I tried some little bit of running. I practiced very hard. I didn't make it, but my principal then, Mr. Julian, said, go, St. Clair. I guess he knew where I was going to. I never give up. Okay, so that was some of my past. I also had my stint at the Institute of Further Education. But I think what is more important at this moment is that, as my friend Brother Cadet mentioned, when I finished school, I had nowhere to go. I was home for almost 1 year, and I had to be farming. Literally not going with my father or my mother, but actually doing it myself, because that was the only thing I could have done. And then, of course, play a little tennis and cricket and with my colleague Andre. I remember during that time, you had people like Fimbo Hopkins up in Mount St. Ovens. He had a farmers group. And so I was very close to them. So I was able to learn a lot from these elderly persons. I then remember having to go on a visit. They say they have a field tour. I say, field tour? Young boy, 19, 18 years. And they say, yes, the Minister of Agriculture is coming. I say George Brizan. I don't even know who this person was. May his soul rest in peace. And we went and we visited in Paradise and Paws, and he was there with his boots actually visiting with the farmers. And so I had my experience way inside up there. So it is this sort of energies that continue with me today. I then worked with Dr. Marcel and his team at the Produce Chemist Laboratory. This was very important. So I moved up the value chain, if you want to say, as I said today. I moved from planting and I moved to the lab. We are testing things. We are assisting people like Papi, may his soul rest in peace, with his agro products and so on. And we are adding value to products, to some of the cottage persons. So there I had an appreciation for about adding value and able to do things right, customers, consumption, healthy living. So I learned a lot of those things there. And through my travels and studies abroad, I was able to understand within the US system the importance of agriculture. Apples and all of those things. Strawberries, garlic. I used to be planting those things in the backyard where I was living. And so I never lost sight of that. But I also involved in another angle. I actually taught agriculture science at the secondary school. Many of the farmers today in the St. Andrews area would have had some little teaching from me and be able to make a better life of themselves today. Some of them now I still would represent at this level, and they would assist me in the various ways to contribute better. But the turning point, I think, is when I entered the MNIB, where I spent over 20 years there. I've been able to be exposed to so many things that I didn't even know before, locally, regionally, and internationally. And that gave me a whole new perspective and a lot of different things, the issue of groups, dynamics, and so on. But what I think was most important, Mr. President, is in my travels, I tried to look at things that can help this country. So, for example, when I went to Rwanda in Africa, you see that the cassava farmers, they were bringing in the cassavas in bulk, and they were actually producing cassava flour, packaging it and selling it within the local space, providing it to the schools and institutions right in Rwanda. And so sometimes we sit here and we wonder what is going on in Africa. Good things is happening. When you go to Ethiopia, we have been also, the mother really say you have to go right down to Ethiopia. You saw what they were doing with honey. and beekeeping. And their bees are wild bees. They have to climb on the trees like Africanized bees. In Grenada, we have nice, friendly bees. Okay? But things was happening. I went to Costa Rica, and I see at the end of the day, they would take all of the agricultural waste and make compost. So you wonder, what is happening in Grenada? So all of those give me that sort of inspiration. And I could give you a long list, which I would not go into more, which through networking we would share. My background broadly is in total quality management. It is in value chain and market development. So I always look at how can we do things better. And that is what drives me all the time. I believe that there is always a solution to anything that will come up to you. We may not find it today. We may have to pack it a little bit. We may not find the correct solution, but a solution we must find. But as I present this morning, Mr. President, it wasn't necessarily my favorite subject in school, history. But I thought that what has really happened to agriculture? You listen to the elderly and they speak about what used to happen before. So I say, we teach agriculture science, we teach history, but we never taught the history of agriculture. What has happened in Grenada regarding agriculture? We may speak about FEDO and all of the others, but what has happened to agriculture? And so history will teach us that within the period of 50s up to just before the revolution in 1979, agriculture was on a slope, heading downwards. And it was because of the whole political climate and underdevelopment going on in this country. I was able to read a report by a professor out of Manitoba University in Canada, published sometime in 1985. And they speak about 5 fundamental problems that they were able to observe that caused this decline. They speak about the Land for the Landless program by the then Saira Giri regime, taking away land indiscriminately from estate owners, so they are scared to develop it. We speak about shortage of labor for farms. We speak about poor extension, poor roads, and we also speak about civil unrest leading up to the independence in 1974. So I reflect and I say what Saira Giri has passed away, independence has passed away, but the more reports I read and the more I listen to our farmers, Mr. President, I realize the same thing is here. So I take a little journey further, and I say, people speak a lot about during the revolution. I'm not too sure because in our generation, a lot of the persons who are alive can speak about this era of the revolution. And from my own personal experiences, I say, but yes, we had a Maribo Agriculture Training School, training persons to be extension officers. So there was some effort to revitalize, because if something was going down, what need to happen? We had the MNIB, which owned a boat because it can move fresh produce to the Caribbean. And I hear people today saying, we need to get a boat. Well, we had a boat. We also had a perfume factory with investors from Europe participating, and which government actually had shares involved in that. People speaking right now about we need to do fish fillet and we need to smoke fish, and we had that. We even had a fishing school. And of course, our good friends from Carriacou, you had your lime factory. Used to be shipping to Trinidad, the livestock. Where is that today? In fact, someone said to me yesterday, Senator, those boats going down empty now, to Trinidad, and they're coming up full of other things, which I don't want to mention. So something changed. And so up to last night, I was speaking to someone, and they said, well, I said, what changed? He said, well, if all that you had is not there anymore, where is it? What happened to it? And of course, it was only last night, so I didn't have enough time to do more research for it this morning. So I cannot give the rest of the answers to that. But while I was sleeping, I recall we had agro industries. We were making juice and fruit sponges. Only in recent months, we would hear there is no lettuce in this country. But we used to export lettuce. We used to export grapefruit during the revolution. So what has happened? And so when I've been told, you know, you have a huge task on your back, I've kind of said, but it looks so it should, because there are a lot of things maybe I wasn't aware of. And maybe if I was aware, I might have said, well, But sometimes it's good that you only know afterwards. But I know some things of today, Mr. President. I know there is cane coke, actually, right in my neighborhood. A stone throw. If I throw a stone, I could show it right on the factory where I live in Conference. And I said, but there is cane coke. But a lot of persons forget we used to be growing sugar cane, and we had a coffee factory. But what has cane coke done? And it's a proud moment for us in Grenada and agriculture. A lot of youths are employed. Technologies are available. I saw an advertisement that they wanted drone operators, tractors, so you need persons to service them. You have local persons, good, well-trained individuals, running the operations. And then I say, but they have to have a lot of money to do this. That's a lot of money. How did they get this money? Well, there are different ways. But at the same time, you may have another gentleman down the road trying to get a shade house so that he can plant lettuce and cabbage, so that we can always get. So the issue of technology, the issue of finance, they become issues and challenges. But there are other little initiatives taking place. You have the Nutmeg, you have Miss La Grenade Industries, you have the Juve chocolate, you have the goat milk, you have the Grenada chocolate. So there are a lot of other little startups, and it's good. But we need something to take us in a more meaningful way, in a more sustainable way, that a farmer could live, or any one of us could say, let us go and plant 5 acres of land because we know we can sell and able to make money, we can pay people, we can provide jobs, and so on. This is the confidence that this sort of agriculture that we need to think about going forward need to be able to create. And so this is the vision, and of course, Mr. President, we had a nice discussion, and this is the vision we have to create. We won't get there tomorrow, but we will get there. So, are the farmers ready? The farmers are ready. This morning I was speaking to one of the farmers, and he said, farmers are ready. So then I said, well, what is holding you back? Mr. President, Grenada agriculture has been diversified through the years. We had cocoa, nutmeg, bananas. We see right now we have beekeeping, we have floriculture, we have poultry. So we have many, we have livestock is growing, and there are different challenges in those different subsectors. I wouldn't go into the whole long list of that here today because we're going to discuss that at a later stage. But of course, the issue of stray dogs running all hours of the night and day, destroying our sheep and goat and so on, that's a problem. It's an issue for those who want to engage in livestock. The issue of apiculture is the market is untapped, but they need finances to help them to improve. The issue of poultry, that need a whole conference to address. But there's great opportunities for the country to reduce its import bill there. We have the issue of nutmeg and cocoa. Great opportunity again. We have road access and we need to look at how do we add more value to those industries. We have our other spices. One farmer said to me, Roderick, make sure we have to do something with spices. And I keep saying, why you? He said, well, we're the Isle of Spice. But it's not only that. You'd find that our spice production in this country has declined. And I could speak to that because I was involved in a lot of that spice business as a young boy. And fish. To our Sister Williams on the other side, member, sometimes I spend a lot of time in Guave. I find it to be a relaxing moment, and so I understand the importance of fishing. Of course, we have other parts of the country, but on the ground there, I could see and understand what fishing need to do for us. I know Petit Matnik and so on, the longliners, but we need to do something with fishing. We have issues there, finance, ice machine, and so on. And floriculture is a thriving business where we need to look at the issue of greenhouse technologies and so on. So in a nutshell, I realize we have some problems that I summarized in a few key points. We are losing lands, buildings and buildings that just keep going up, and we are losing good agricultural lands. Our whole marketing system and infrastructure is very weak. Farmers cannot plant or grow a crop knowing how they would sell it easily. And so because of that, sometimes financiers are also scared to support. Technology is also underdeveloped. The same stories of the Gary time. We also have some of our policies and legislations. We need to help to fix them and make them better. And so when I was speaking to a colleague once, he said, you know, you would be here, you would be dealing with laws and legislation. I said, well, laws and legislation. So here we have an opportunity to look at that. We also have the issue of governance. And I need to say this, Mr. Speaker. Oh, sorry, Mr. President. Thank you. Stand corrected. Yeah, yes. We as the farmers, we need to do a lot by the way of fixing our governance and our groups and so on. This we need to do a lot of work on. This I've given a commitment to both Minister David and Minister Bain Oxford that we have to work on and we need to fix it. We need to get our house in order. And I've spoken to many of the different groups already and say we need to get that going. Because without that, we cannot move forward. We need to move towards a national body of farmers and fisher folks chanting the way forward in a very progressive way and providing confidence for the nation that we will take care of them in terms of food security and so on. And of course, our value added is totally underdeveloped. And I will say totally underdeveloped. We need to get it to the point where we can have it in terms of affordability, both for local, overseas, accessing markets based on the quality and all of those things like that. So this is areas, and of course, human resource and capacity building is another area. Look, for example, Mr. President, as I slept last night, it's a pity, I was dreaming too. During the revolution, when we started, and I say we, well, I was young, the farm school, as we call it, we had over 100 persons trained. Today, look at the age. If you work it out, 20 is almost 40 years ago. So it means that we are 60 years. So it means that without any big maths, that most of these folks would have gone through that training are out the door, retired or on the way to retirement. So who is going to be helping our farmers? I know the ministry is working on that, but is it too much, too late? But we have not lost time. So it reflects on to me is how we do things, because what we are seeing here in Grenada is no different in my travels, in my communication to different persons in the world. even if you read on your own, it's not different. But you know, it's how you approach things. And I like the spirit of the House and the sentiments expressed. We have to find ways to solve problems. And I'm very happy to hear this. It's how we approach problems, how we approach challenges, but how we also approach opportunities, because sometimes we could squander opportunities and lose it. So I then said to myself, you know, we cannot afford for our farmers to go further down. We cannot afford for our farmers to be poor or poorer. Because according to a Polish proverb, it says, if the farmer is poor, then so is the whole country. We cannot afford that. And so when you say, and you give me the challenge of no, I smile, because we need to stop it. We need to stop it. So what does our farmers and fisher folks want to see? What is their vision? What is their aspiration? Because anytime you identify a problem, you need to have some ideas, have some solutions that you want to put forward. Of course, it has to be tested. But I have some thoughts that I want to share of not just my personal, but is distilled from discussion with other technocrats and operators in the industry. We need markets, strong, robust, vibrant markets, not just locally and overseas. How we do those things, I will not get into that right now. That's the strategies. So we want to see that. We want to see our agriculture lands safeguarded. Safeguarded. I don't want to say protected. I don't want to say secured. Safeguarded. And fixed farm access road. Some people say, well, let's repair the road. I say fixed road, meaning that the road we know at the end of the day will be fixed. We need to have strong, functioning National Farmers Organization. And I make a commitment that this has to happen. We need more youth, but I'm not hearing the women part, and women in agriculture. We need that for continuity. We need to have more monies available. And I'm not saying where the money has to come from, but we need more monies. In Africa, for example, right now, Mr. President, countries there are saying, we have investment programs in different areas that the government want to stimulate, and asking the diaspora to invest back into those areas so that it's their homeland, rather than having their money stay away in some bank, and they can bring it to develop their countries. And so we need to look at that, and I kind of highlight this point here because I think it's very important for persons following us on this matter. Of course, we need a supportive government policies and framework, and of course, I've heard a serious commitment from everyone inside here today, so I'm very happy that we're almost there with this. And of course, we need to have a proper disaster and food management plan for this country so that we can withstand the shocks of not only natural disasters in the form of weather and climate change, but also in matters of the COVID, for example, pest and disease outbreak, and other such like. Capacity building and skills training is very important. And during the revolutionary government administration time, today, I would say close to maybe 60–70% of our technocrats have benefited. And that's a legacy that we need to keep pushing, because more education, more capacity, we're able to do better. But when you look at it again, Mr. President, these are the children and cousins and nephews and nieces from the landowners, the farmer, and so on, that has grown up through the years, and they have different positions in different parts of the world and different parts of the society, contributing in their different ways. For me, personally speaking, I've maintained my presence in this sector. I've never gone over, but what I've done is that I have merged and take other interest areas to help me develop. So whether it's ICT, whether it's information, whether it's marketing, as the case may be, to help to build, to make me a better person, so I can add more value to the sector. Farmers are happy at the end of the day when they start making money. That's the first thing. So you go into Cloger and they will speak about, when bananas was exporting, we had money spending. When nutmeg was growing, business in Grenville was fully operational and so on. Fishermen could sell fish. They know money coming out because you go and sell your cocoa and your nutmeg and the banana and so on. So we need to bring this life back. We need to bring this life back. So this is where I think I come in. So I've been reflecting since before even having been appointed, because it's just my whole life. How do we move forward? What are some of the key approaches? It's not an exhaustive list, of course, and I'm not going to go into details, as I mentioned earlier, but I'm going to share. We need to have communication, dialogue. A lot of time things is happening and we're not sharing and we're not discussing, so we are wasting resources. So we need to be able to share in some dialogue platform. How do we move forward in addressing issues? Already for me, I have used some of the technology and I've already started a Facebook page, YouTube channel and so on to communicate within my constituents, but also to communicate with persons outside of the immediate constituents. In addition to that, I will be engaging throughout the country in a structured way, different parishes, different villages, with the farmers, so we can get the input. But of course, as you mentioned, the dialogue with our ministers, I already had meetings with the two ministers of Agriculture and Fisheries, and the future is bright. And so a lot is expected, as you say. We also have, so this takes care of my second point of the lobby, to unlock the bottlenecks that is going on in agriculture. They are not difficult. If we have a pipe at home that is not giving water properly, we know how to find a solution and fix it. Why is it difficult sometimes to find solutions to other things? And sometimes the solution that we need to find may not be a high-tech solution, but what we want at the end of the day is water running through the pipe. But we need to involve people who also know, people who can share in the knowledge and getting things on. We cannot leave persons out because, well, they're making noise or they're giving trouble. We have to be inclusive. I want to also suggest, Mr. President, and I'm not too sure if it's within my jurisdiction of speaking, but we need to have, at the government level, some, what I say, an interministerial body, a committee, and even at the parliament, to address this significant pillar of agriculture. Because we have opportunities of health, in disaster management, in infrastructure, in education, to find ways to add more value to the agriculture contribution in Grenada. And this becomes even more significant in times when this COVID situation are we not happening, we don't know what is going to happen with our tourism sector, whereas we wish and want it to come back. So in the meantime, we need to safeguard agriculture before it slips away from us. And of course, I will continue to engage local, regional, and international organizations through my network to see whatever support that we can get to advance this important sector. Mr. President, as I go into a very important part of my presentation, progression to the new agriculture. I need to follow this closely so I keep on track. This new agriculture that I refer to is one which would involve correcting the mistakes of the past, one that embraces the opportunities of the present and deliver real results to our farmers, fisher folks, their families, and everyone. That is what we want to see in the new agriculture. One that is transformational, not just something new because it's new. It must, so what? It mustn't be that. You must feel the change. One that is driven by modern agro-industrialization, which means that we're looking from the farm, or from the primary stage right through to the end. How do we mechanize and use all those different technologies and techniques and technical personnel to be able to drive more market utilization and drive the economy? One that would involve, I'm not saying eat what you grow and grow what you eat. I think that what that has done to us is that we continue just eating if it's the same thing and growing the same thing. And I say we need to eat more of what we grow, and we need to grow more of what we eat. So that at the end of the day, we could have more markets for our local farmers and fisher folks. We want to also add more value, real value. Not the supermarket one, but real value. One where we have the brightest minds at work. Put them to work. A lot of bright minds outside that we're not utilizing. Let's make them work towards the future. Let's help them. Let's target their minds where we will see this country in the next 10, 20 years, and they know that they need to do something in some nuclear something or something to able to make that change that we want to do. When you look at countries of Japan and Singapore and all of those progressive countries, they would have done that. The revolution started it. As I said, something changed, maybe when I was sleeping. Mr. President, we need a new agriculture where our Grenadians, our Caricunians, and our Pitimatnicans can feel proud. Not only proud about the output, but they can feel proud that the younger persons, the children, the women, are getting more and more involved in this important sector. Because if you don't have in more uptick of new persons, what are you proud about? As Brother Luis said here, he feels proud. He was here all along, and he was feeling proud maybe for himself. Today I come, I know he feels prouder. Right? And of course, that is because there is a new optic. Mr. President, we speak of history. However, this is important. Mr. President, I speak of history as being in the past history, something that happened. But I want to put a new tone on this and say, however, I put forward that this must be the history of the future. We must start writing the future. Because if we're not writing the future, we will continue to remain where we are and keep reflecting on the back. But it cannot and will not happen by chance. It will happen when all hands come together and working in an integrated way for this child, agriculture and fisheries in Grenada. It will happen, Mr. President, when we love and care for this child, and we want to see this child grow and develop into success. That we want to see into success. Like many of us in our own lives, our parents would have wanted to see us grow into success. We are too small maybe to know that there is something called success. But they know what they wanted for us. We got here because someone cared. Our parents, our grandparents, strangers, the community took care of us. It said that it takes a community or a village to raise a child. This child of agriculture, where is the community? Of course, Mr. President, we may not have gotten everything we needed as a little child. We may have to postpone, we had to sacrifice. Our parents made sacrifice, we made sacrifices. But at the end of the day, in our different ways, we'd have achieved. As some would say, it may not have been an easy road. Let us in the broadest sense, beyond this house, Honorable House, Mr. Speaker, let us be the community for this child, agriculture and fisheries. Mr. President, as one of the fellow farmers said to me yesterday, I was chatting and saying, when I have this speech to give and so on, he said, watch, Senator, agriculture is not an outside child. Agriculture is not a foster child. Agriculture is all of us child. And so I left there with a sense of energy, knowing that there were others who already start taking ownership and want to be part of this community. We must own it. It's urgent. Farmers are getting old, and they're worried. They're worried that this child may, they're not too sure where this child may be, and they may die. That is the urgency, Mr. President. In the next 3 to 4 years, maybe 5 years, we'd want to look back, should we still be alive as ourselves, and say, what have we done? How have we helped this child? Have we found solutions to make this child better? Mr. President, a new agriculture and fisheries sector that we cared and nurtured is what we're looking for. Amidst the challenges, we must say that we found solutions. We must say that we stood up for agriculture because the community stood up, because I stood up, because everyone stood up. This begs the question, who is ready to stand up? I know I'm standing, and there are many others standing. Some of you, honorable members, might be sitting, and I know you cannot stand up when I'm speaking, but you will stand when you are called to stand. When we look forward into history, and I say look forward into history, how much of us want our names, want to see our names written in the soils, saying that we stood up here? Or see your footprint, the boot print that you stand up here. Time is limited, and time is running out. I was signed up for this many years ago as a little boy, and I would have weighed different size of boots. I'd have walked different roads. But I continue to stand up. Today, I have given the opportunity to act in another level. And I welcome it. I appreciate it to the farmers. And of course, Mr. President, you said it for me, but I think it's honest that I say it from my own voice. My parents, friends, my wife, family, the community, local, regionally, and international, who have helped me along my journey in becoming a better person. I assure everyone that my mind is very clear. It's very, very clear regarding the commitment and the responsibility and obligations that this current status, I'm saying the status of status on your phone, holds. I understand very clearly. As I part, Mr. President, This new agriculture will happen when we have a consistency of purpose. We have to constantly be going after it and focus and not give up and say, well, I give up on this child. Because it's for the good of this country. It's good to help our income, our livelihoods, our healthcare system, the whole works. It's a good thing. A good that will ensure food security, good health, and will ensure a sustainable environment, will see our young persons actively participating and entering into this agriculture and fishery sector. And when you start seeing that, we know that it's time to move on. A good that will create a sustainable economy, and a good that will make us all proud, and knowing the future will be kept bright by the thousands of torches of agriculture and fishery sector. The way to know and understand is to get your torch and join. We all have to be in it, not to win it, but to see it. I'm calling on all, wherever you are at this moment, to get your torch and let us light the flame of agriculture and fisheries for a brighter future. Let it glow, Mr. President. I'm not a prophet. I never claimed to be. But as I learned as a little boy in primary school, there was a little nursery rhyme. I wouldn't go through the rhyme, but I will say it. But the time to be happy is now. Mr. President, honorable members, I say to us, I say to our nation, I say to our diaspora, light your torch. If you don't have a torch, we can find you one. Let's grow agriculture and fisheries. Mr. President, finally, as our farmers and fisher folks would say, the moon is right. The time is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Sincere. Very profound opening contribution. And I know you would be proud of it when you sit back and read it, or in the years ahead when your grandkids pick up that booklet that we have contemplated to read your contribution. Very instructive. Honorable members, it's fortuitous at this time although on a somewhat somber note, to ask of us, in the wake of this sterling maiden speech by the honorable member from St. Andrew, to pay tribute to the memory of another honorable member, a fallen soldier of this Senate, whom I had the privilege to serve in my early sojourn here in this house, and who was also a farmer's representative. He was indeed a specialist in agriculture, in that he was one of Grenada's leading banana producers. He passed away on Sunday, October the 11th, at age 72. This is my understanding that his wife also died earlier this year. Dudley Andrew was a simple man. He was fiery. Quite often I looked to him for partnership as I carried the workers' struggle in this chamber, and he carried the farmers' struggle in the same chamber. And we became very good friends. So I'd ask of the Senate, in our tradition, to stand at this time for a moment of silence and to have the clerk convey to Dudley's surviving family members our most profound condolences, to convey to them also that we at this time share their grief. And we stand for a moment of silence to pay tribute to this outstanding Grenadian farmer who has done much to carry us to where we are at this moment in time. Dudley Andrew. Thank you, honorable members. The nation is grateful to him. Clerk?
Item number 7, ministerial statements.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I stand to give an update to the Ministry of Health, one of those ministries I'm charged with the responsibility to cover within this honorable House. And as we are aware, Grenada continues to grapple with the issues of the COVID-19 pandemic. And also on the heels of this, dengue, and the need for us as a people to continue to respect the protocols and all the safety measures that have been advocated by the Ministry of Health and the WHO and PAHO and so forth. It becomes increasingly important for us as a people to recognize the dangers posed by these diseases and the need for us to not only be concerned about our own safety, but the safety of those around us. To date, Mr. President, Grenada has recorded 32 cases, positive cases of the COVID-19 since the start of the pandemic, and it's equal among both genders, 16 male, 16 female. You remember on the 22nd of March 2020, Grenada would have confirmed its first positive case. And then today, we are now up to 32. A very good mark within the sub-region in terms of numbers, and also extremely good results in terms of those who've been to hospital, and we have had no deaths. The median age of cases is 56 years, and it ranged from 8 years to 73 years. Since the reopening of the borders at the beginning of October, 8 new lab-confirmed cases of COVID-19 have been identified. 7 were imported and 1 import-related. And the breakdown of countries are as follows. We had 2 from the United Kingdom, 1 from France, 2 from Canada, 2 from the USA, and of course, 1 import-related. The latest case, Mr. President, was confirmed on the 7th of November, imported from the USA on a flight that arrived on November 1. To date, there have been 5 hospital admissions for COVID-19 with 0 deaths. 27 of the 32 cases have since recovered. So in short, we have 5 active cases on island. A total of some 7,500 PCR tests were done so far in Grenada. But I just want to take a moment to commend our people in large part for following the protocols, the social distancing, the wearing of the masks, the sanitizing, and so forth. But there have been a few indiscretions that has been painful to this country. And we have to be reminded of this. And as the nation was in a uproar over the last weekend with the 32nd case, you have a situation where the nation has been brought almost on its knees because of indiscretion of one person. We have to deal with this. You would remember case number 25, Mr. President. Breached quarantine and was all over the place. And as a result of this indiscretion, some 77 persons were in quarantine and had to be tested twice to ensure that they were not infected. It also slowed down in a major construction operation in the north of the country. So in this period, productivity would have dropped. Family income would have been curtailed because of the indiscretion of one individual. But added to that, Mr. President, of the 77 persons who had to be tested and tested twice, the burden had to be brought onto the state. 410 EC dollars is a cost for one PCR test. So let's do the math. And we'll realize that the nation, in this period, in this, as people would say, Google days, brought about because of COVID, the state had to find resources to conduct those tests. With this last case, we trust that the extent of the exposure to the nation would be less than case 25, but as we would say, 1 is too many. Because that's $410 that could have gone, and probably might be 410 times 10, you never know. That could have gone towards providing more services for vulnerable people. So I just want to reach out to the nation and ask our people to continue to be vigilant and to wear a mask and do the necessaries as being advocated by the Ministry of Health. As it relates to dengue, Mr. President, Grenada is currently experiencing an outbreak which began in August of this year. The type 3 dengue virus has been confirmed as a cause. To date, a total of 317 cases were reported so far. And unfortunately, this is about more than twice the amount we had for the entire period last year. And what is of major concern to the government is that of the 317, 278 of these were recorded only in the past 13 weeks. I just want to remind the nation, and remind our people that to protect yourself from dengue and all sort of viruses, it's a personal responsibility we have. We know what caused the breeding site of the Aedes aegypti mosquito, that's as the main vector responsible for dengue. So let's keep our surroundings clean. Stagnant water, we need to remove those. And every area that possible could cause the breeding of mosquitoes, let's try to deal with it. As a ministry, our response to this is by, one, public sensitization and public education and awareness. We're doing the necessary fogging and so forth. But we, and I'm saying we as the Ministry of Health, alone cannot do it. We need the cooperation of all our citizens. And it is painful at times when you as a homeowner will do the necessary, do all that it takes to keep your surroundings clean. But down the road, those sanitization methods or so forth are not practiced. And it's an open space, so you might see, well, you keep your place clean, but your neighbor's mosquito will come and visit. So it is the responsibility of all of us. Let's do our bit to curb the spread of the dengue, and of course, the COVID-19. Let's continue to follow the protocols. Let's continue to do the necessaries to keep our country safe. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Gawe. Senator Chris Diali, and then Senator Lewis. I think I see them.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, and directed to a senatorial colleague on the other side, giving a report on health, in particular on the COVID virus and the quarantine issues that we see coming forward on the violation of the quarantine procedures. I want to ask the member on the other side if there is any consideration from the Ministry of Health to reconsider how the home quarantine program is administered in particular, and if the situation with the watch that is put on people's hand to monitor them, if that process is working properly, because my information is that it has not, and there is need for us to tighten or review that process.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and I just want to thank the honorable member for these questions, extremely important questions. And what we have realized from the Ministry of Health, our biggest challenge at this point in time is home quarantine. So of course we had to reassess the whole situation and come up with some more stringent decisions as it relates to ensuring that we have this thing under control. Let me start with the geofencing or GPS watches, as you rightly asked and raised. Yes, there is no secret. The current watches that was on the market, there were some issues with them, serious issues. And the service provider would have reached out to another company, a new company, to get watches that is currently obtained or is used in Jamaica and St. Lucia. And the watches should be here today or tomorrow. And from as a practical standpoint, we believe with the new devices will be better able to detect if persons were to move out of the radius where they're supposed to be. That is one. Secondly, and I think extremely important, what we have been able to identify is that the violators of the quarantine are of a certain age range. So persons over 65, how we will treat a person over 65 asking for home quarantine will be totally different to a person 40 and under. And persons or children 5 and under, how we will treat with them would be totally different in terms of the ease we will allow those minors to get a necessary quarantine. However, if they are with the family and it's one setting, they will remain together. We also look at persons who are sick and disabled, how we treat with them. But the bottom line is, and we all agree, home quarantine has provided the biggest risks for this nation. And we had to tighten up. I heard someone complaining this morning via social media and saying, it's like we're just changing the thing arbitrarily. We were 4 days in quarantine and now we moved from, because this person from Canada violated, and we moved from 4 to 7 days. The bottom line here, I'm speaking to the nation, the bottom line here is the safety of this country and the people of the Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. That's the bottom line. If it means that you will have to move the quarantine period upwards to protect this country, we'll have to, so be it. Other countries, first world countries, they still hold on to 14 days. 7 days is not bad. But if that is what it will take to keep our country safe, that's what we're going to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And Senator Diari basically touched on some of the concerns I have, but I want to make the following point. To you, Mr. President, we will all agree that the aspect of calling on the community to assist in the different ways possible is extremely important. And a lot of it has to do with confidence. We in the Labour movement have consistently called upon people to follow the protocols. We have called on and supported the draconian measures that have been taken. And there need to be stiffer measures and implementation of penalties. Because if there is any further lockdown, the workers are the ones who will undoubtedly bear the brunt. But permit me to ask, so far, in relation to patient number 32 and 33, I think it's 32 and 33 or 31 and 32, if I get it wrong or right. How many persons are in quarantine as a result of this? Yes, and are the restaurants closed? And I go back to the aspect of confidence. It has been felt outside by a number of people that I've interacted with that patient 25, I think he is about 32 years old or so, the state seem to have been a more public issue in relation to this. So you heard the news about the construction company having to close. You heard the news about the 77 people having to be quarantined. But in relation to patient number 32 and 33 or 31 and 32, whatever, you are not hearing what is the direct impact. We have heard that I think 4 restaurants were visited. If that information is correct, I think from the Ministry of Health. But we need to know how many people have been quarantined so that these messages can go out there to reinforce to people. And then our citizens can rest assured that not because it is a doctor, and I'm not saying that this is the case, but perception is reality in this thing. Not because it is a doctor, one seem to be able to not hear about the potential impact. So it is important for us to hear this. And Senator Gawi, you touched on an important point. The aspect of the age range. The aspect of the age range. We would want to see, based on the 62 and 53-year-old, that consideration has been given to tightening, not in relation to just the 18 to 40 or whatever it is, but we have seen that the home quarantine by itself is not working, and therefore for the age groups, the different age groups, whatever it is, stiffer monitoring procedure should be put in place. And I want to end by asking the questions. What amount of people have been quarantined? Are the restaurants locked down, shut down, as a result of patient number 32 and 33 or 31 and 32?
Thank you very much. Mr. President?
Because you may not have the information, this could always be deferred and be placed in a written answer that would give you the time to get the information.
Yeah, Mr. President. Well, thanks again to the honorable member for your support and your commitment towards ensuring that we work together in this pandemic, protecting the country, protecting our workers. As I speak, the contact tracers are still on the job, case 31 and 32. But we have asked a number of persons to isolate themselves. Yes, 4 restaurants were visited, but the beauty of it, if there is any beauty in this sort of madness that would have transpired, the population in the area of those restaurants were very small. And in one case in particular, one restaurant wasn't open to the public. One of the other ones, when he visited the area, the protocols were fully followed. Have them on a table by themselves, kind of isolated, and the staff who visited them were in their full PPEs and so forth. So a lot of measures were in place, because one of the things that I want to commend the Ministry of Health for the continued vigilance in this regard and training, and to ensure that establishments follow the protocol. I'm going to say what we have identified going forward is that some of those establishments that have been given the right to open will be asked to close. If you cannot follow the protocol, if you will cause people to assemble in large numbers, tables more than the numbers that is required because you cannot get a space in, we will have to do those things. And those are the decision that will be made going forward. But to answer you, yes, the contact tracers continue to do the work, and persons have been asked to isolate themselves. Of course, the test will be done to ascertain whether persons are positive or negative, and I hope in this regard that they are negative.
Senator Tesson-Sincere?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Gawi, for that report. I too wish to commend the Ministry of Health for the work that they are doing. But one thing seems very clear to me, and that appears to be the ignorance of the fact that a critical part of public health is the social and behavioral aspects of that. So to me, the Ministry of Health seems to be focusing quite heavily on the EPI and biostats, the surveillance, the contact tracing, the environmental part of it, the health policy part of it, but they're not paying particular attention to the social and behavioral aspects of public health, which really is where people's behaviors are going to be monitored or changed or so on. Having said that, I would like to ask a direct question because I would have listened to the press conference with Dr. Charles, and there was a trust to have a stricter, more stringent monitoring security. So maybe the honorable member could tell us what initiatives are currently being taken to ensure that this does not happen again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. President, I want to also thank the member for her continued support in this regard, as I know she's within the public health domain, so she understands exactly what we're dealing with and what needs to be done. And I thank you for the commendation that you've given to the Ministry of Health. Well taken. As it relates to the whole idea of behavioral changes or patterns and trends and the likes and so forth, we are very much aware as to what happens if you restrict persons' movement and ability to be free and so forth. There are reactions to it. So what we have been able to do within the Ministry of Social Development, the necessary counseling and so forth, and observation, that has been done at this point in time. Because yes, it's one thing, Mr. President, to protect the entire population by restricting freedom of movement of others. But that in itself has its own disadvantage too. So if you do not take the time to psychosocial training and counseling and so forth, that you could have another issue that you have to deal with. So all those issues have been taken into consideration, and the Ministry of Social Development, as you know, the minister is now within the Ministry of Health as well. And I think it's an excellent match to deal with the fallouts from the pandemic. As to the question in terms of stricter and stringent measures, to enforce the laws of this country, that has been given entirely to the Royal Grenada Police Force. And we will have to ensure that they do that and do it forcefully. Yes, as a nation, we're very peaceful and hospitable. But when our safety is threatened by those who want to flaunt the laws, there is a zero tolerance towards that. And when we talk about stringent measures, yes, you will have the security forces throughout the length and breadth of this country ensuring that the monitoring is done. The devices that will be used to track and so forth, any violations, and I want to say it, any violation will be treated with the high level of seriousness that it deserves. One of our Caribbean nations is reading with community spread of this virus because somebody came through the crack and just move around and infect people throughout the society. And with small jurisdictions like ours, small developing states like ours, if there is an outbreak in one part of the country, let's look at just how the buses move daily. So you can take it from Grandlands and drop it into the bus terminals, and from bus terminals either in St. Andrews or St. Patrick's or wherever, and before you know, the entire country could be engulfed. So we take this very seriously, and thank you for raising it, because the nation has to realize this is a serious time. When we look at what is happening in our first world countries and how they're grappling with this second wave and they have to shut down and so forth, we can't afford this here. So we will continue to be tougher, even tougher. Thank you.
Mr. President, before we receive any further questions, if I could suggest, based on interest from the other side, COVID is an issue that concerns all of us, but I just wish to remind the House that on this side, we don't actually have a formal representative from the Ministry of Health, and I believe we're getting some quite detailed discussions on this. So if I could urge members on the other side, if they have specific questions and require more detailed answers, that they be put in writing and we can address them at the next sitting in the questions section.
I reminded Senator Garway that if he felt that there were limitations to the knowledge that he has, he just had to indicate that he would prefer to have that in writing. And that was a way, diplomatically, of indicating to the other side exactly what you have just indicated. But I'm just sharpening my diplomatic and plenipotentiary skills, so to do. Senator Noel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Sincere, my colleague has already touched on the security aspect. One of the questions I was going to ask. However, there is a concern in terms of the arrangements in regards to the guest houses or quarantine areas, in regard especially to weekends, as people having access to the necessary things that they need in cases of food and so on. Because there were some community members who called me on issue of last weekend where the owners or whoever in charge of one of these quarantine areas, guest house in particular, where the people didn't have food. And they told them to go and get their food and come back. And that was the case. So in terms of the arrangement, what kind of arrangements that are made for these kind of things? One, and two, is the Ministry of Health or the government keeping its end of the bargain in the sense when people come into the country after the 4 days, is there enough staffing in the Ministry of Health to test these people to give them the all clear? Because we are hearing it is a problem. Because we can't bring people here and people paying their money to come here and expecting after the 4 days that they're tested and you can't keep them confined. They're going to get frustrated and so on. Because we're hearing these things are happening. So is the Ministry of Health have enough staffing and experts in terms of to test these people to give them the all clear after the allotted 4 days so that they could move on, or whether they should stay in quarantine or not? Thank you.
Mr. President, if I could suggest, again, a very detailed question, I would suggest that the member on the other side put this in writing and we can provide an appropriate response rather than covering it here in the ministerial statements, which, as far as standing orders are concerned, are not the appropriate place for such detailed debate on ministerial matters.
All right, Mr. President, I was just going through the standing orders to just bring us into conformity to the standing orders. I know you would have given leeway to members to ask questions, and that become the order of the day, but really and truly we have deviated from the standing orders.
Presenting a ministerial statement, and the questions are confined to the ministerial statement. If when the question is put, there's an insufficiency of information, you indicate that, but this is not a breach of the standing order. In every parliament, there's a question period. This is a ministerial statement. You are reporting on a ministry, and granted, you are reporting on some ministries of which you don't have direct responsibility for. So your knowledge will be limited. But if we refer to the Constitution of Grenada, it makes it clear that the executive is responsible to the parliament. And if you issue a ministerial statement, a question can be asked. if you, for whatever reason, as I just repeat, you find there's an insufficiency of knowledge on your part, you just simply indicate that and we move on. Because a question doesn't lay the basis for a debate. There's no debate. There's a simple answer. So I just thought I should correct this because there seemed to be a growing misconception that people can't ask a question on a ministerial statement.
That was not the intention, Mr. President, but I stand guided. I just want to look at Standing Order 18 and looking at E. Sorry, not EF, sorry. A question shall not contain arguments, inferences, opinions, imputation, ethics, ironical expressions, or hypotheses, or hypothetical cases, sorry. The last question that was asked by the Honorable Senator was not based on facts. It was based on opinions, based on hearsay, based on, just name it. I am not able to answer this question because there are no facts here. What I would suggest, as the leader of government business would have intimated earlier, given that the Ministry of Health, who has ultimate responsibility for this, and the minister so is not here, I will be more than grateful to provide all the answers you require if those questions could be given to me in writing. Thanks.
Item number 8, presentations of papers and reports from select committees.
Mr. President, I beg to move the following papers and reports be laid on the table. 1, report of the Fiscal Responsibility Oversight Committee 2019, response of the Minister of Finance. 2, the report of the Director of Audit on the resources managed for the period May 2016 to 31st October 2019 for solar PV demonstration and scale-up project. 3, report of the Director of Audit on the financial statements of the Confiscated Assets Fund for the year ended 31st December 2018. 4, the annual report of the Grenada Development Bank for the year ended 31st December 2019. 5, annual report of the Grenada Tourism Authority for the period ended 31st December 2016. 6, report of the Supervisor of Insurance for the year ended 31st December 2019. 7, annual report and financial statements of the National Insurance Board, NIS, for the year ended 31st December 2019. 8, audited financial statements of the Grenada National Stadium Authority for the financial years ended 31st December 2016 and 2017. And finally, 9, financial statements and audit report thereon of the Grenada Airports Authority for the fiscal year ended 31st December 2017.
Honorable members, the following papers and reports from various select committees, namely report of the Fiscal Responsibility Oversight Committee 2019, response of the Minister of Finance. Report number 2, report of the Director of Audit on the resources managed for the period May 2016 to 31st of October 2019 for solar PV demonstration and scale-up project. 3, report of the Director of Audit on the financial statements of the Confiscated Asset Fund in the year ending 31st of December 2018, the annual report on the Grenada Development Bank for the year ending 31st of December 2019, annual report of the Grenada Tourism Authority for the year ending 31st of December 2017, report of the Supervisor of Insurance for the year ending 31st of December 2019, annual report and financial statements of the National Insurance Scheme for the year ending 31st of December 2019, audited financial statements of the Grenada National Stadium Authority for the fiscal year ending 31st of December 2017, and finally, financial statements and audited reports thereon of the Grenada Airports Authority for the financial year ending 31st of December 2017 are now hereby ordered to be laid on the table. Mr. Clerk?
Sir. Mr. President,
Sorry.
through your leave, could I just make a quick comment on papers that was laid? Quick comment.
Yes. Sure.
5 seconds. Mr. President, we every year we come, we do this, and we do this in a lot of areas. I want to show you, and I know we have a strategic plan that was released about for how we move forward. If we could get a committee in place to start looking at these things
if you could,
detail, a committee in place to start looking at these statements, because GTA 2017 and Airport Authority 2017, that information is of no use to us now in 2020. And Airport Authority sending a statement no for 2017 results. We need to debate that in another committee and not here. But these are things we really need to look at seriously. Thank you, Mr. President.
The Public Accounts Committee, which is a by, should be addressing those things.
Senator, the Public Accounts Committee should be addressing all of these matters. I mean, this should come to the Public Accounts Committee, which is chaired by the Leader of Her Majesty's Opposition. And that is where the details of all of these things, and you can actually summon individuals to appear before the committee to explain a number of matters. Another route, of course, is, as I said to you before, and I have been preaching, well, non-stop. I guess that's what preachers do. Preachers don't stop if people stop listening. They keep preaching. That one of the methodologies that is set up within the very system that we have are resolutions. So one can frame a resolution on a report, and you can debate it as the case might be. So it's up to you. But the idea of a committee is not a bad thing, except that there will be limiting powers on such a committee, whereas the Public Accounts Committee has all the powers that are necessary. And it is in fact a committee based on principles of accountability. And this is why it's not headed by the executive at all. It is headed by the Leader of the Opposition. One of his principal functions in the House is as head of that committee to do this work. So it's very important work, and I'm agreeing with you that we should. I will give further thought to us. Maybe, well, an informal committee could be set up. You don't need the blessings of a resolution of the House. There's absolutely no reason why different members of the House can't get together and study these different documents and prepare questions out of them, or motions to be debated. I mean, these are things, we've done in the past. But like everything else, a lot of the things we did in the past are just falling by because current persons are not picking up where we left off. So I just thought I would make those comments in response to your request for a special committee. And I'm saying there's no reason why an informal committee can't be. The proper place and the more profound place is the public accounts, because these are public accounts. These are public accounts. These are public report to the Parliament. And as I said, you will have the powers to summon people. Yes, you'll have powers to summon people to appear before you to explain a number of issues. Yes, well.
Item number 9, petitions. Item number 10, government notices. Item number 11, unofficial notices. Item number 12, questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Mr. President, with your blessings, I have 3 questions here. And question 1 has A, B, and C, and so on. So I'd like to know if I should go ahead. Just go ahead. Okay, all right. All right, question 1. As it relates to the official opening of the Grenville bus terminus and market, A, does the government of Grenada have any plans to officially open the Grenville bus terminus? B, how soon does the government plan to officially open the Grenville bus terminus? And C, when will the government of Grenada hand over the booths at the Grenville bus terminal to the owners for business? That's question 1.
If I could suggest, Mr. President, if the person asking the question could indicate who that question is directed toward. We have the information in front of us, but I think it would be useful in terms of being able to direct the discussion as we move forward. But that first question was directed at myself. So, so for all subsequent questions, if you could indicate that, and that will help us on this side. So, Mr. President, in terms of the first question, does the government of Grenada have any plans to officially open the Grenville bus terminus? The answer is yes. How soon does the government plan to officially open the Grenville bus terminus? The plan is to officially open it in 2021. When will the government of Grenada hand over the booths at the Grenville bus terminal to the owners for business? They'll be handed over after all of the remedial work is done and the completion of negotiations with the Grenada Ports Authority, who will be managing the bus terminus after official opening.
Thank you again, Mr. President. Now question 2 is directed to Senator Simon Steele again. And concerning the regular flooding in the town of Grenville, St. Andrews, A, does the government of Grenada have any plans to solve the flooding problem in Grenville? B, how soon will the government of Grenada address the flooding problem in Grenville?
So, in response to the first question, does the government of Grenada have any plans to solve the flooding problem in Grenville? The answer is yes. How soon will we address the problem? Government has recently tendered a flood mitigation study for the town of St. George, Grand Anse, town of Grenville, and other areas with flooding issues through grant support. Expressions of interest have been received, and a contract will be selected before the end of this year. The study will inform remedial actions to address the problem of flooding in Grenville.
Thank you again, Mr. President. Question 3, directed to Senator Simon Steele, Leader of Government Business. And it reads, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the government of Grenada proposed $1 million in grant and $2 million in loans to the GCNA. A, what were the conditionality proposed by the government should the grant and loan be accepted? B, did the GCNA accept or receive the grant or loan offered to them by the government?
Thank you, Mr. President. With regard to the conditionality attached to the 2 loan agreements, Mr. President, agreement has been reached between the Government of Grenada and the GCNA with regard to the grant component of that support package. So it is that I will speak to. The loan component is still pending. The key conditionalities attached to the loan funds is that those funds can only be used as price support, as a subsidy to the nutmeg industry to maintain business continuity due to the impact of COVID-19. In other words, Mr. President, this is to directly support and benefit our farmers and not to cover operational or administrative expenses of the association. The GCNA would be required to provide monthly reports to the Ministry of Agriculture detailing the use of those grant funds to ensure that they are being used for the purposes intended. In the event of a breach of contract, then repayment of those portions of monies used in that material breach will be repaid to government. And on completion of the grant period, an audited financial report for the period is to be provided by the GCNA. Mr. President, these are grant funds, these are taxpayers' money. Therefore, it's important that those funds are adequately accounted for. To part B, did the GCNA accept or receive the grant or loan offered to them by the government? And the response, Mr. President, is the GCNA has accepted the government's grant offer, and the funds will be dispersed within 5 working days of the execution of that agreement. So I believe the formalities of signing that, that agreement are to be completed at this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And this question number 1 is directed to Minister of State with the responsibility for disaster management, Senator the Honorable Winston Garwe. Is there a legal framework for the operations and of functioning of NADMA? That's A. B. If there is not any legal framework, then why not?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, the question, is there a legal framework for the operation and functioning of NADMA? The answer is yes. So the second question is non-material. That's 2 questions you asked. So the second one, which was, if there is not any legal framework, then why not? And that is immaterial.
Thank you. Question number 2. Based on the disaster preparedness, how many shelters should there be in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit-Martinique, respectively? B. How many shelters are existing in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit-Martinique, respectively? C, if all the shelters are not existent, what are the reasons for that? D, what resources are given to shelter managers to work with within the shelters? E, are all shelter teams in place? And F, if all the shelter teams are not in place, what are the reasons for that?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The first question is not fully put together. As I said, based on the disaster preparedness, I'm not sure what you intend to mean. How many shelters should there be in Grenada? I want to rephrase this to understand. I think you're asking how many shelters is required for the population size of Grenada. I want to believe that's the question you're asking. Mr. President, based on how this thing is done, and given that we have a population of 110,000 divided over 3 islands, disaster shelters are based on what is available in terms of within your constituency boundary, what facility that is available. But to answer the question directly, as you said, there is no right answer to this. What is important, and based on the rephrasing of the question, the government is satisfied that based on current available data, the shelter allocation per district is adequate. That is what is important. B, how many shelters are existing in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique? And the response, Mr. President, is 117 emergency shelters, which is broken down as 82 primary shelters and 34 secondary shelters. And let me just break this down even further. A primary shelter is a shelter that can be occupied prior to and during an event or an impact. And a secondary shelter can only be occupied after the event. C, if all shelters are not existing, that question again is immaterial. D, what resources are given to shelter managers to work within the shelters? And the response is they are given gloves, masks, sanitizers, stationery, handheld radios, medical kits, sleeping bags, and sanitizing and hygiene kits. The E answer, are all the shelter teams in place? Like, simple response, no, you have 117. But what I can say, Mr. President, of all the areas that is to be, if there are need for a shelter to be opened, we have teams to occupy those shelters. As the last episode we've had, you had shelters open in the south and shelters open in the north. And you had it in the south, and only one person showed up. You had in the north, in Carriacou, and you had about 4 to 6 families. But we had, on island, we have enough shelter managers to take control of the shelters wherever we need to open. That was it. Did I miss one? No, I think that's it.
Thank you, Senator.
Oh, sorry. I missed F. If all the shelter teams are not in place, what are the reasons for that? Mr. President, disaster management operations across the district are run by volunteers. And occasionally, there are times when you have more volunteers than you need, and there are times when you have less than you need. But what we've been able to do at all times, if there is need for activation of a shelter, we had those shelters fully staffed.
Senator Lewis?
Mr. President, can I seek further clarity just on the answers provided?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. President. And thanks for your assistance as we work together. A national disaster is what it is, national disaster, and therefore we all have equal concerns about it. So based on the issue, based on the disaster preparedness plan, based on even your help in reconstructing the plan, the question, am I to take it that we do not have for Grenada that require X or Y amount of shelters? In your help, you said that the question, based on disaster preparedness, one would expect that there's a national disaster plan. And if there's a national disaster plan, because shelters are an integral part of must be an integral part of the plan, and because we have constituencies or locations, and one would expect that there will be locations identified for shelters and what would be the appropriate shelters required. If this is the case, then according to the answer, we have not been given a total as to how many shelters there ought to be based if everything is ideal. And therefore, the answer has left me a bit worse off than when I started. As a matter of fact, if I was to accept the answer provided by the minister, we are in a bad state.
Well, let me just clarify one thing here, Senator. A question cannot be used as a pretext for a debate. And this is engendering a debate. The minister has given an answer. You may not be satisfied with the answer, and if you're not, then the next procedural step is to come with a motion of some sort, right? But we can't be debating whether his answer is proper, improper, fully, not fully accurate, or not inaccurate, as the case might be. He's provided an answer, and the rules expressly say that an opportunity to ask a question cannot be an opportunity to debate. So I just thought I would I didn't write the rules, but these are the rules, and it's heading down that route. So if you want to debate the answer, then you'd have to come with a substantive motion dealing with the issue. Yes?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Question B, and was very specific. It asked how many shelters are existing in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit-Martinique, respectively. The answer provided said as follows, and I hope I'm not entering into a debate, but guide me here, please. The answer provided as such, that there are 117 shelters in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit-Martinique. The question, yes, the question specifically asked. The question specifically asked. Yes, so please, the question specifically asked. Yes, how many shelters are existing in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit-Martinique, respectively? The answer provided did not address the specificity. Yes, thank you.
The clarification that you're seeking. Yeah.
Mr. President, I just have to do the research and I'll pull up the itemized shelter list for the countries, but I'll give you that before the sitting finish. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Question number 3. What, same directed to Senator Winston Garwe, what is the budget allocated for disaster management?
Oh, Mr. President, thanks very much. I will answer the question, but before I do, I just want to take this opportunity to bring my esteemed colleague, back to the standing order, more or less the Bible of the Senate. And we should be guided by this. It's nice to ask questions, and I will oblige to give you the information. Let's go into standing order 18-9. Standing order 18-9, and I will read it because I want the member to start making this order of business going forward in the Senate. The answer to, well, going back to the first, it said that, and we're looking at G, a question shall not be asked, and let's go to 9. If the answer to which can be found by reference to available official publication. The question you're asking me here is found in the Statement of Revenue and Expenditure for 2020. So you waste the Senate's time by asking this, or probably because you're not so versed with the standing order. But let me just give what is stated. The capital budget for 2020, $5,350,000, and the recurrent, $625,166. You want me to tell you the page too?
Senator Lewis? Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Question number 4. Are all directed to this, Senator Wilson Gawe? Are all committees and subcommittees fully staffed? That's A. And B, if they are not fully staffed, then what are the reasons for that? Thank you.
Mr. President, again, thanks for this question. The function of disaster management in this country is fueled by voluntarism, as I've said before. We expect people to volunteer to ensure that the work of disaster management is carried out and carried out effectively. One of the things that we have identified, Mr. President, that within a number of the committees, the same volunteers are repeated, and we have realized, in a lot of sense, that has created, in some cases, burnout, and, well, let's say it's burnout. And as a result, there has been discussions, and discussion has been finalized. So in our next update of the committees within the agency, we will be collapsing some of the committees into one, because they basically do the same thing. Take, for example, one will hazardous materials and hazardous waste, search and rescue. You have marine pollution and oil spill. We're going to bring them together because they virtually do the same thing. So, in short, the answer to what you're asking, if we have all the committees fully functioning, and I wouldn't say staffed because it's volunteers. No, not all are fully functioning.
Senator Lewis? Thank you, Senator Gawe.
Thank you, Senator Gawe. Directed your way again. Question number 5. What resources do district coordinators receive to work within their districts?
Senator Gawe? The question number 5 is what resources do district coordinators receive to work within their districts?
Okay, so we asked before, and I gave responses to this, or the shelter managers. Okay, so just give me could you ask the next question and I'll come back to 5.
Okay, Senator
Sure.
Lewis.
Thank you very much. Question number 6. A, directed to Senator Gawi. Is there a deputy to the National Disaster Coordinator? B, if there is no deputy, then what are the reasons for that? And C, if there is no deputy disaster coordinator, should there be one to assist in the absence of the coordinator?
So this is number 5 on my order list here. So that's where the problem is. 5, is there a deputy to the National Disaster Coordinator at this present time? No. If there is no deputy, then what are the reasons for this? During the fiscal year 2020, no request was made to fill that post. And C, if there is no deputy disaster coordinator, should there be one to assist in the absence of the coordinator? And the answer to this is yes.
Yes. Senator, you coming back? I know there's a problem in the numbering. Are you in a position to come back or you want more time?
Yes, thanks, Mr. President. I need some more time because the number, only 5 questions I received.
Oh, okay.
So, but I'll look to see what happened here.
Okay. Senator Lewis?
Thank you very much. And I do appreciate the answers as we continue to provide, as we continue to ask questions and seek answers and provide answers to the nation who may be listening and will not be seeing this as a waste of their time. This question are now designed for the Minister the Minister for Climate Resilience, the Environment, Forestry, Fisheries, and Disaster Management, Senator the Honorable Simon Steele. Question number 1. In relation to the Government of Grenada COVID-19 Economic Stimulus Package, A, how much money was and or is allocated for the economic stimulus assistance? B, how much money have been expended as of August 2020? C, how many workers received assistance for the months of April, May, and June 2020, respectively? D, how many workers have received assistance as of September 31st, 2020? E, has there been any case of fraud / misappropriation / corruption of the economic stimulus assistance by any company / employer? F, if there has been any case of fraud / misappropriation / corruption of the economic stimulus assistance, could the leader of government's business inform as follows? 1, Roman numeral 1, what was the nature? Roman numeral 2, the name of the company / employer. Roman numeral 3, what is the total sum of money involved? Roman numeral 4, could the state have pursued any legal charges / actions? Roman numeral 5, did the state pursue any legal charges, action against any company / employer? And Roman numeral 6, if not, why not?
Senator Steele?
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you with In response to first question A, how much money is allocated to the economic stimulus assistance? The supplementary budget of 2020 allowed for an allocation of $20 million. And that was for payroll support to specific sectors, subsectors, including specific to hoteliers, restaurants and bars, small travel agents, and income support to public buses, taxi drivers, tourist vendors, market vendors, and other identified hospitality-based businesses and contingencies for other overruns. B, how much money has been expended as of August 2020? As of July the 31st, 2020, approximately $7.5 million has been expended on the income and payroll grant support. C, how many workers received assistance for the months of April, May, and June 2020, respectively? The following numbers of workers received assistance under the payroll support program for the following months. So for April, 3,224 workers. For the month of May, 3,148 workers. And for the month of June, 2,767 workers. Question D, how many workers have received assistance as of September 31st, 2020? So, Mr. President, through you, in addition to the amounts stated for April, May, and June, 1,542 workers in the hotel sector received assistance for the month of July. And this is the only sector approved for an additional 1-month stimulus payment. E, has there been any fraud, case of fraud, misappropriation, corruption of the economic stimulus assistance by any company employer? Mr. President, through you, some irregularities were found, and when persons were contacted, they indicated there was either an error which had been made or a misunderstanding of the information that was provided. Mr. President, these errors were corrected to the satisfaction of the Ministry of Finance. With response to question F, if there have been any cases, and then you've gone through points 1 to 6 in terms of the nature, names of employee sums, etc. So wrapping up all of those points, the response is all matters observed and reported have been investigated by the Secretariat, and the relevant businesses have been advised, and to date, the necessary adjustments have been made by these businesses. And as a result, there has been no need to pursue legal action. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Steele. Senator Lewis.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Steele. But permit me to get specific. I understand the lumping of 1 to 6, and I understand no action was pursued. But Roman numeral 2 asks, what is the name of the company employer? Isn't we entitled, if companies committed irregularities, as you call it, and shouldn't the names be provided to this House? The question came from this House. I have not heard the names. 1. 2, the sum total of the money involved. These are specific questions. What have come our way is a lumping of issues, but these questions are extremely specific. I'm seeking clarity. These questions are absolutely specific. The name of the company and our employer, what is the total sum of money involved, These two, I'm asking for the specific, these questions have been asked very clearly.
Senator Steele.
So, Mr. President, I think my answer was very, very clear, and I'm not going to debate this at this time. As stated in my response, irregularities were found, errors which were corrected. So there is no question here of fraud or misappropriation or corruption. So providing the information that Senator Lewis is requiring is inappropriate in terms of the findings of the investigation and the response that's been provided.
Thank you, Senator Steele. Senator Lewis.
Mr. President, through you for clarity so that I can make sure that I understand the answer. I have my constituents to report to. We represent workers in the hotel sector. So just bear with me by giving the background. I do not come here to represent myself.
Mr. President, are we debating this matter in terms of standing order? Questions should not be a pretext for a debate, and I think that is where we're going with this. So your guidance would be appreciated, Mr. President.
Yes, Senator.
Senator? Could I ask? Is the minister, just for clarity, again, finally, is the minister saying that there was no misappropriation?
Well, I thought that's what he said. I thought that's what he said.
Okay. Noted.
Yes.
I just want to answer it and just get it to the way.
Sorry.
No, I would just, Mr. President, I did promise to come back as it relates to the, well, what would be now question number 6, and would have asked what resources do district coordinators receive to work within the districts. In the past, we have provided spade, forks, gloves, garbage bags, and a small telephone allowance to district coordinators.
Thank you very much, Senator Gawi, for the completion of this issues. I now move to question 2 to Senator Simon Steele. This question has to do with, in relation to the marine protection areas, could the leader of government's business in the Senate provide the following answers? A, how many MPAs, and MPAs would be marine protected areas, so I will just stay with the MPAs. How many MPAs are there in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, respectively? And just to repeat, respectively. B, are they functional and or enforced? C, if they are not fully or partially functional, then why not? D, how many rangers should there be in mainland Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, respectively? E, how many rangers are currently engaged in mainland Grenada? F, is there an MPA manager? G, if there is an MPA, is there an MPA communications officer? And H, if there are no MPAs, manager and communication officer, what are the reasons for this?
Thank you, Mr. President. In response to question A, how many MPAs are there in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, respectively? Mr. President, through you, there are 3 designated marine protected areas on mainland Grenada and 1 in Carriacou. There are no MPAs in Petit Martinique. So the MPAs that do exist are Molinaire-Beauséjour, Woburn Clark's Court Bay, Grand Anse, mainland Grenada, and in Carriacou, Sandy Island, Oyster Bed. Are they functional, enforced? The answer is some. If they're not, question C, if they are not all fully or partially functional, then why not? So, Mr. President, through you, Sandy Island Oyster Bed MPA in Carriacou is fully functional. Grand Anse MPA has only recently been designated, Mr. President, and that was in March of 2020, so just before the lockdown. Implementation plans for Grand Anse, so recently designated, and Woburn Clark's Court Bay are currently being developed to bring them into operation. The operations of Molinaire-Beauséjour MPA were project funded through external agencies. Those funding sources have now expired. Those project support has come to an end, and efforts are being made to secure the additional resources to continue its operation. D, how many rangers should there be in mainland Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique, respectively? The response, Mr. President, the required number of rangers per operational MPA is 5, and that's to provide 12 hours per day, 7 days a week coverage. E, how many rangers are currently engaged in mainland Grenada? And the response there is, and I'll go through each of the MPAs. Sandy Island Oyster Bed, currently serviced by 4 rangers. And then we're in the process of reappointing rangers to Molinaire-Beauséjour. And we're in the process, as I said, of operationalizing Grand Anse and Woburn Clark's Court. And I will reiterate that Grand Anse was designated just a few months ago. Is there an MPA manager? The response is currently a dedicated MPA manager is not employed. However, the management functions are overseen by technical officers within the Fisheries Division. Is there an MPA communications officer? The answer is no, not currently. However, the communications function, once again, is being overseen by technical officers within the Fisheries Division. H, if there are no MPA managers and communication officers, what are the reasons for this? So, Mr. President, through you, the communications officer was employed under one of these external projects, the Grenada Ridge to Reef project, but that contract has now ended and efforts are being made to seek additional funds. And that's it, Mr. President.
Senator Steele. Senator Lewis? Sorry, Senator.
I thought you wanted to ask additional questions. They are not there, but I just reported that I could have asked additional questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. Question 1. Question is directed at Senator Galway. Could the minister provide the details of the integrated solid waste management project?
Senator, the Honorable Winston Galway.
Thank you very much. As I speak, Mr. President, the clerk is, the Sergeant of Arms is distributing the answers or the responses to the questions that have been posed by the Honorable Senator.
question 2, again to Senator Garway. What plans are being made or under consideration for the old telescope waste disposal site? That's A. B. The minister is asked to provide details of the World Bank IUCN study conducted at the old telescope waste disposal site.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I want to advise that Yes, I just want to advise that the responses that was circulated, the answer is within that package. So the members have the answers at this point.
Okay. Well, Senator, you may wish to, because it requires a verbal response, because there's an asterisk next to it, you may wish to read the answer that is already contained there, because it requires a verbal response. But you have gone beyond the call of duty and provided a written one. So in conformity with the standing order, you must now read into the record, all right, to comply fully. As I said, you've gone beyond the call of duty, but to comply fully, you must now read, unless Senator Sincere, well, I ought not to be inviting violations.
Mr. President,
anyway,
I mean, what I'm observing, if I may, is the request, the question 1, is not asterisked, and I think that is the document that has been circulated.
No, but Senator Garvey explained that question number 2, the answer to question number 2 is also contained in the document. Isn't that what you're saying, Senator?
Okay, Mr. President, Integrated Solid Waste Management Project report. The Government of Grenada received approval for financing from the Caribbean Development Bank, CDB, towards an integrated solid waste project for Grenada. The protection of Grenada's natural environment.
One second, Senator. Are you standing on a point of what
yes,
is your...
on a point of order, Mr. President, the honourable member is reading the response to question 1, and I required an oral answer to question 2.
I need to look at the questions.
Senator Garvey, are you clear on...
I need to just look back at the question.
Just give him a minute while we sort this out.
Because I'm not seeing it here. Just,
yes, Senator Williams.
Mr. President, if
And you are seeking...
I'm standing on a point of order, Mr. President.
Yes?
Or rather, just to inform the House that all of the previous questions asked were not marked with an asterisk and therefore did not require an oral answer. But the members of this side of the House were gracious enough to provide oral
Well, that's what I said. I said you went beyond the call of duty.
Yes, yes. So I just find it a bit discourteous that our member here, Senator Garvey, has gone out of his way to provide more than any of us would have expected in answer to those questions, but he is being asked
Senator,
to stick
okay, Senator, I got the point
to the
again, but we ought
standing
not to be debating the question, and
Yes,
you
but-
are dangerously close to a debate.
No, this is a point of order Mr. President,
Yeah.
directly addressing the standing orders. And I'm seeing in the House that there's discretion being extended in relation to the procedures of the House in regards to certain aspects, but in other aspects where members of the House are being gracious enough and to go beyond the call of duty to meet the needs of the House, there is, I think, some lack of leniency being extended to a member of the House who is doing his best, very best to answer those questions, Mr. President.
Let me just see if I can clarify this, Senator. Question number 1 is a written response. Question number 2 is a verbal response. My understanding of what Senator Gawi said is that in the written response attached thereto is a written response to the question under consideration, which is question number 2. So he has responded, but in writing. And that's why I raised the issue, because there was a clear asterisk. All right? I mean, I can't engage in the subtraction and addition. The questions before never required a vocal response, right? But senators gave it, and the flow and through, I allowed it, because really the mischief here is not severe or acute. And I'm bearing in mind that the citizens are listening to this debate. And the citizens will want to find out, and it's all in the interest of a healthy engagement. So the question is asked, and it doesn't have an asterisk, and you supply a written response. The citizens don't have an opportunity to understand what's really going on. And so I have, in an attempt to, I would say, embrace the democratic engagement, I have given an opportunity for people to expand vocally so that the citizens who are listening to the debate will have a deeper understanding. So I understand that in the strictest clinical sense, yes, the rules were breached, but in order to maintain order, the breach is not sufficiently acute to create a mischief that needs, otherwise we will have a very straitjacketed, so I understand your point. Your point is valid. I'm not putting it down. I take guidance from your point. And this is why I said to Senator Gawi, he may wish to vocalize, right? If the responses are here, he may wish to vocalize. And the reason I'm enticing him or endearing him to vocalize is that the citizens of Grenada would have an opportunity to hear the response. Because as it stands at the moment, this written response is not shared with anybody else. It's just us members here and the senator who primarily moved the question in the first case. So I just thought, thank you for your intervention. It's quite an order. I have no difficulty with it, right? And, you have to keep the president on his toes. That's what you're here for. You're not here to kowtow with the president. Keep me on my toes. If there's a breach, stand firmly and say, Mr. President, I stand on a point of order. This is the breach. And then the breach may be an honest omission on my part, or it may be a calculated omission in order to achieve a particular greater objective, which is why I moved in that direction. So as you know how your courts interpret the Constitution, it's a dynamic document. So at one point, a particular behavior is totally unconstitutional, totally repugnant to the conscience of the nation. And at another point, that very said thing, according to the courts, and we've had that experience. The Constitution, which allowed liberty for all and recognition that we are all born with certain inalienable rights, was never extended to black people. You know that. I don't want to get into that history. But I'm just dealing with the dynamics of the interpretation of presiding and judicial, people who have judicial responsibility. And I'm not no judge, but certainly I have a quasi-function of maintaining the order and the rules. So I take your point, it is meritorious. I'm not striking it down, but I'm just explaining that. So Senator Gawi, the floor is now yours. You decide how you wish to proceed with the matter.
Okay, Mr. President, so in answer to A of question 2, what plans are being made under consideration for the old telescope waste disposal site? There are no plans at the moment. B, the minister is asked to provide details of the World Bank IUCN study conducted at the old telescope waste disposal site. And here is my response. Asia Pacific Waste Characterization, APWC study is presently being conducted on Grenada as part of the Plastic Waste Free Island project. The project was initiated July 8, 2020 and expires January 31st, 2021. The following were executed: hiring and training of local staff that would be tasked with the fieldwork aspect of the study, conducting interviews with householders and commercial enterprises in various demographics, collection and sorting of waste from the various homes and businesses, desktop data collection from various stakeholders, including Grenada Solid Waste Management Authority, Customs, Port Authority, tourism, recyclers, producers, cruise ships, fishing vessels, airplanes, and others. The APWC has set up an online platform where individual collection or interview sheets are uploaded online from the point of contact, either by the interviewer or interviewee, and this is accessed directly by the overseas statisticians. An enterprising group of 14 young Grenadians has been engaged and trained to participate in the data collection, most with an academic focus on the areas related to environmental studies. The Grenada Solid Waste Management Authority authorized contact with waste collection contractors and a route established for the collection of some 220 samples of garbage from householders across the island, divided by demographic. Samples of garbage were collected curbside from communities designated high income, medium income, and low income. The collection in all three categories were done in St. George's, representing urban area, St. David's, representing a rural area, and St. Andrew Grenville, representing a peri-urban area. The samples were taken to the solid waste location in Telescope, St. Andrew, during the month of August for sorting, which was modified by a collaborative effort with the project at the Grenada Solid Waste Management team to ensure safety and adherence to strict protocols established. Samples were sorted daily and then disposed of by transporting away from Telescope to the landfill at Perseverance. Household interviews were also conducted in St. George's and St. David, with 50 interviews remaining to be conducted in St. Andrew to be completed by the end of November 2020. Members of the team traveled to Carriacou in September and conducted a total of 30 household interviews and household sample collection and sorting, as well as a landfill audit of the Dumfries landfill in Carriacou. A desktop data collection continues, coordinated remotely by APWC project manager Martina Dimacourse. Over the next few weeks, it is expected to complete a 7-day visual landfill audit of the Perseverance landfill, as well as collections and sorting from a sample of commercial enterprises in Grenada, including supermarkets, banks, insurance companies, saloons, and others. According to requested demographic of the study, a sample of waste from fisherfolk will also be collected and sorted as part of the data set. Herein,
Thank you, Senator Garwe. Much appreciated. The following questions are directed at Honorable Simon Steele. Question 1. As it relates to the pilot project implemented at the Grenville Secondary School, A, the Minister is asked to provide to the Senate a description and an update of the pilot project. B, what criteria were used for the selection of the Grenville Secondary School for this project? C, to what extent was consultation for this project done with stakeholders, namely teachers, school board, parents, students, and past students?
Okay, through you, Mr. President. In response to question 1A, it's asked to provide the Senate description and update of the pilot project. So, Mr. President, the STAR intervention program is designed to identify and create an actionable plan for addressing the needs of students who are at risk of not completing school. STAR provides instructional, psychological, physical, social, and spiritual support to students and is focused on providing all necessary mechanisms to help each of the students identified to stay in school, to graduate, be responsible citizens, and contributing members of society. Mr. President, the STAR program has started in September of this year and is scheduled to run over a 6-month period. B, what criteria were used for the selection of Grenville Secondary School for this pilot project? Grenville Secondary School has experienced a disproportionate number of behavioral challenges in recent times, and there have been calls from teachers, parents, and the Commissioner of Police for a formal and structured intervention. The STAR program is a response to this request, but also offers an opportunity to develop a model that can be applied to other schools experiencing similar challenges. And a number of schools, Mr. President, have already been identified. C, to what extent was consultation for this pilot project done with stakeholders, teachers, school boards, parents, students, and past students? In response, the program was developed in the first instance, drawing on information collected from the principal, teachers, and other staff at the school, including information obtained from historical stakeholder consultations on the issue of student behavior. Initial consultations were also held with parents and students Mr. Deputy President, initial consultations were also held with parents and students to identify those who wished to participate in the program. Further consultative sessions were held with the 11 students and their parents who agreed to participate in the program prior to the commencement of the program. Thank you, Mr. Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Senator Steele. The following question is for Senator Cox. In relation to the National Youth Ambassadors Program, question 1, the Minister is asked to provide a copy of each of the completed application forms for the Youth Ambassadors Program. Question 2, the Minister is asked to indicate the stratification process used, if any, in the selection of the youth ambassadors.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy President. Through you, Mr. Deputy President. Question one. Mr. Deputy President, in response, we had a challenge in answering that question, responding to that question fully, and I'll explain, and maybe with the members' understanding may accede to that limited response. Mr. President, Mr. Deputy President, we have the application forms, and most of the questions speak to completed application form. Some of the forms weren't completed, but we have all the applications. There were 59 applicants, 34 of which met the criteria, 25 who didn't meet the criteria. The challenge, Mr. Deputy President, is that those applications contain personal information, not only of the applicants, but also of next of kin and other siblings. We thought it a little bit tricky in making that information public. We do not, I'm not certain that we have the right and permission to make other persons' personal information public document. As such, we believe that we can, and I think that may be satisfactory, because I do not know in its entirety the purpose for requesting the entire application form, but we can make available the names of all the applicants, if so is accepted. But because of other personal information on the form, not related to the applicant only, we didn't want to do that at this point in time, Mr. Deputy President. I'll sit and so that the member may want to respond to that.
Senator.
Mr. Deputy President, thank you. I find Senator Cox's response very interesting indeed, because there are ways of de-identifying the application forms. Copies can be made and they can be de-identified. But I also choose to look at the point where he said I asked for completed application forms, and some of them were not completed, but I'm not going to raise a debate on that issue. So for now, I will accept the response given.
Senator Cox.
Mr. Deputy President, I believe what I did offer the member is the same thing that she's suggesting, but I didn't want to take it up on my own to present redacted information without the member acceding to such, because the question did ask for a complete application form. So that is where we are right now. But if the member is satisfied with having those other personal information redacted, those application forms can be made available. I don't see no challenge in that regard. So, Mr. Deputy President, that is where we are. I think, in honest, Mr. Deputy President, we need to be fair and principled, and I don't know what is the legal ramifications that may lie with us just putting out somebody's personal information without their permission in that regard. So, that is where we are. So it's not a matter of us not wanting to do it. As I said, the information is there. It's just that there are other information on the form. So that is where we are. Mr. Deputy President, as regards to the second question, and the question reads, the minister is asked to identify the stratification process used, if any, in the selection of the youth ambassadors. And the answer, Mr. Deputy President, selection was based on a number of set criteria and applicants selected throughout to ensure countrywide representation, Mr. Deputy President. And just to add, Mr. Deputy President, the criteria was shared with the member, even without asking for it formally. I just want to put that on the record. So thank you very much.
Item 13, personal explanations. Item number 14, motions.
Mr. Deputy President, I beg to move the following motion standing in my name. Whereas the debate on the gracious address delivered by the Governor-General on the occasion of the ceremonial state opening of the 4th session of the 10th Parliament on Friday the 9th of October 2020 was further deferred to a date to be fixed, be it resolved that said address now be debated by the Senate. Mr. President, I beg to amend this motion to read, be it resolved that the said address be further deferred to a date to be fixed. Mr. President, I think it would be the next sitting, quite probably, would be the budget debate. And the budget for 2021 is founded on the gracious address by the Governor-General. So at that point, that debate will take place. Hence, the request to amend this for that debate to be deferred to a date to be fixed.
That there be an amendment to the motion standing in the name of Leader of Government's Business, the Honorable Simon Steele, in its resolution that the House now doth appoint, sorry, oh, hold on a minute, one minute. That the said address be now debated to be amended, that the said address be now deferred to a date to be fixed. And he has indicated the reason for this, and that such a debate and such a date may very well be at the next sitting, or maybe possibly a little later. So, honorable members, the question is that the motion standing in the name of the Leader of Government's Business, the Honorable Simon Steele, be amended in its resolution part to change the words "be now debated by the Senate" to read to be debated at a date to be fixed. All those who are of that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. The motion now stands amended to be debated at a date to be fixed. Honorable members, it's, according to my watch, 9 minutes to 1. We started promptly at 9 o'clock, which has become the great tradition of the Senate. We start dead on time, unless there's some compelling, extenuating circumstance which prohibits that from happening. Under the provisions of the Labor Relations Act, of which Senator Andre Lewis would be most familiar, without the consent of the worker, we can't go for more than 4 hours without the right to have access to something to eat. I want for your consideration now, although it's my privilege so to do, but as you see, I never like to really conduct the business of the Senate by imposition, but more by the invitation towards consensus. I want to suggest that because it's a few minutes to 1, and that will take us to the forward break in accordance with the law, I want to suggest, and given the fact that lunch is here, and my understanding it may be still piping hot, I want to suggest that after a very robust and extensive round of engagement this morning, that we take the luncheon recess now for 1 hour, and we'll be back here at 2 o'clock to recommence the work of the chamber. If there are no objections, and if there is concurrence, and I take it that there is concurrence, I now hereby declare the Senate adjourned for the lunch break to resume promptly at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Honorable members, this House now stands adjourned until 2.
Ace and Napper means getting help when you walk through the door. Ace and Napper.